When we look at all like overall search and like overall market share, like where people are searching when they want to find an answer to something, it's the first time this year that Google's market share has actually dipped below 90%. And that is directly correlated to ChatGPT. So everything that Google has lost, ChatGPT has earned. And so we are seeing this really significant shift.
Welcome back to MasterMined. I'm your host, Mark Scrivener, and as always, I'm joined by my fabulous co-host, Jeff Skillen. Welcome to the show, man.
Hello, Mark. Great to be here.
Yeah, and Lee Pepper, thank you for making the trip.
Another wonderful Nashville morning. Glad to be here.
Great. Well, we're also joined today by Abigail Carroll. She's Snapshot's Digital Growth Director and Search Marketing Expert. We're so happy to have you on the show today, Abigail.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be here. It's super fun.
Great. Well, let's dive right in. How about maybe if you could, Abigail, if you could help us take the audience just through your journey. What got you here?
A long journey, it feels like, but I actually fell into SEO pretty accidentally, and I feel like that's the case for a lot of SEOs. You don't really know what it is when you start doing it. And I started actually kind of on the content space, doing like blogs and content strategy and keyword research about 10 years ago, and worked for a lot of different clients from local businesses, restaurants. I think there was pest control at some point. You really just start collecting all these different types of clients. But most recently, I've been over at Publicis, and I was directing their SEO strategy for Meta, American Girl, and Haagen-Dazs. And now I'm really excited to be at Snapshot, really leading the search strategy here as well. So SEO is such an expansive thing. I feel like I've been able to touch all different sectors of it now, but started in those content roots.
Yeah, well, it is evolving so quickly, and I know you keep up with it, minute by minute. So thank you for all you do here and for all of our clients too.
Yeah.
I mean, go ahead, Lee.
I was going to say, and Mark, a number of my clients, also utilize Snapshot for their digital marketing, but I know for my clients that they do. I love when you hired Abigail. I'm like, now I have a force that really is an expert. And I know she won't brag about herself like I will, but I have appreciated knowing that she is kind of backing up. And Abigail, when you talked about blogs, I feel like so many times SEO is just the blog content.
Yep.
And we're missing out on a lot of maybe the architectural element that has to go into it. And, I was just working with Miranda yesterday when you guys had just done like an overhaul of one of my client sites architecturally. And it's like, it's all preparing for this move into AI. So I wonder if you might expound for our audience that SEO and AI is not just blogs.
Yeah, I think the blogs is a really great example of what I like to call like checklist SEO. You're, getting a list of items to walk through, and then, some digital marketing company out there will say, if you get this, and that, that's SEO. You have SEO on your website. You've installed it on your website.
Yeah, somebody goes and runs like an SEM rush tool, and they think that's it.
Exactly. Fixing like a few errors here and there. What I think SEO is and is evolving today is more around search intent and consumer behavior. So it's less about doing something just to have a search engine read it, but more thinking about like that people first aspect, that human quality, especially in the age of AI right now. So how can you combat sites that are so heavily leaning on AI while also still using it to your advantage? There's a fine line to walk there. On the blog piece, though, I find that really interesting because blogs can still be a meaningful tool today, especially for site performance. It's just how you go about it. Sometimes if you have a lot of blogs that are just summarizing content, you're not really adding your own unique value as a business. So that's really not going to do too much in the search landscape. So there's a lot of like strategies and tactics where you're matching that consumer intent first that really pushes you ahead. So it's kind of like blogs can still work, but also taking a step back and seeing like what else can we doing? What is driving this like total search strategy?
And Jeff, and Mark, I'm not going to hog, I promise. And if I do, y'all can just take a break. But Abigail, I wanted to ask you, so taking the next step with blogs, do you find that for any blog post, that within that blog, there needs to be an FAQ of that article or a summary of that article as part of that blog post?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think today, yes. I'm curious to where it will go in 10 years. This reminds me about 10 years ago where everyone was like, a blog needs to be 2,500 words. It has to have a keyword in the H1, meta title, meta description. And it was this like, kind of like,
A formula.
It's like if you do all these things, you'll rank number one. That's all that matters. Just do these things, you're good. And now what we're seeing actually in the age of AI is that LLMs or like ChatGPT, Perplexity are relying on FAQ content so heavily to kind of get those quick snippets, quick answers, and rank that accordingly in search or in the AI engine itself. So right now today, I honestly feel like FAQs are the H1s of 10 years ago. So they're really valuable. And I would recommend to any client to really start investing in that strategy.
This is what the folks that are listening today, like if they're wondering what they can go do today, they're going to say, oh, I've got FAQs. Most of our clients, Jeff and Mark, I think FAQs are, what's your address? What's your mailing address? That's what they think. And that's not what Abigail is talking about. Yeah. Like FAQs now, I mean, they might be 30, 40 deep. And people, I think, are not thinking this way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we jumped into the weeds really fast. which
I love the weeds.
But you know what? Exactly.
We got 40 minutes, Jeff.
I know. But, okay. And I love the weeds too. I want to actually put a little weed killer down.
Jeff wants to do a little dance. No, I got right into it.
No. I'm very happy to jump in the weeds, but I would love to get your perspective on this, and then we go into the weeds, because I think for a lot of the people that are listening to this right now, they've been told, or they think that when they're contemplating SEO strategies or search strategies or whatever, that we're literally in this time now where it's like that was then, this is now.
Yeah.
Is that the way you see it, or is it a continuum that people need to understand better?
I think it's a great question. Specifically, so I actually took an improv class a long time ago.
Love improv. We can do that anytime you like.
Yes. And so I think with SEO, it's very much a yes and, like, honestly. So with SEO...
Don't kill the scene.
No, I'm locked in. But with SEO, you still need to have all that foundational work. And I think a lot of times when GEO or generative engine optimization was introduced, it's like, oh my gosh, this is the brand new buzzword. It's the brand new thing. Every article said SEO is dead. And it's like, that's not the reality that we're living in right now. 90% of searches still come from Google. So we still truly have to work on that foundational SEO work. What we're seeing, though, is a lot of that work actually translates into GEO. There's definitely some new, fun, flashy things that you can do, but without having that baseline from a search strategy perspective, you'll never have a chance of ranking in AI engines or ChatGPT.
Help give the lay person the foundational of what are those things that we can do for the LLMs that are going to help us get found.
It's one of the things that we're really seeing. FAQs is one of them. It's very much like the newer version of an H1 or, really heavy keyword targeting. Just to expand on that strategy a bit more, to Lee's point, it's less about what you think like a business FAQ would be, like what's my contact number, but more about, again, that kind of people first content. What do you think someone would want the answers to quickly if they were looking at your website? From like a behavioral health perspective, you might get a lot of great insight from an admissions team. What are the top questions that your admissions team is being asked? That's a really easy win. Put that in writing. Get the admissions team's answers and feedback that goes on your website. So something like, do you take insurance? Things like that. The other thing that's happening right now is that schema has been around for a long time. Schema, for everyone, is a way to tell a search engine what content lives on your site. And it's basically like a big old dictionary that people love to nerd out on, including me. And it basically walks through, like, if you have a phone number on your site, instead of Google just reading that as a list of numbers, you're telling Google this is a phone number. So it's just identifying what types of content live. Schema's been around since 2014, but we're actually seeing that LLMs rely so heavily on it now, along with FAQs, to understand that context around your business. So where you're located, what are your credentials, your certifications. So anything that you can do to kind of get someone who's an expert at schema, number one. It's definitely like a really technical thing that you have to implement on your site, requires development work, but it's going to be such, beneficial foundational work for, this kind of AI transition that we're in.
I feel like this gets back to early talking about the architecture. I feel like some of the stuff that Abigail's talking about, you have to have somebody that's very knowledgeable in the architecture, because even when you're putting the FAQs on your site, they're not designed to be necessarily consumed by humans per se. It's really, you have to design it to be consumed by the LLMs. And so that's going to require you can't just log into your website and just start writing FAQs, because you might not tag them appropriately.
Well, I mean, just breaking this down Sesame Street style, if you think about the schema, it's really, think about it more like this is the Spark Notes version of your website. This is the Cliffs Notes version of your website, but it has to be built and populated in a specific way so that it can be easily read and accessed by these LLMs.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yes. No, 1,000%.
And so a skilled person is going to know how to do that, whereas an unskilled person, frankly, can wreck your life.
Exactly. And one of the worst things about doing any sort of development work that's as technical as schema is you come into the risk of, breaking other aspects of your website. So anytime you're doing technical work in general, you want someone with a very white glove approach so that you don't, have a bunch of broken pages and a broken site experience after doing some sort of big heavy lift.
So I can imagine for a company that's maybe opening additional outpatient clinics, all of a sudden you don't want to have somebody mess that up, and all of a sudden the new outpatient clinic is now listed as your main location, and you've deleted all the other locations by accident, because we've seen stuff like that happen.
Yeah.
Jeff, you Sesame Streeted that one, man. I love that. We've had so many people comment on how much they love that
the Sesame Street thing. Yeah. Well,
we need to create maybe a Jeff hand puppet. When he says that, we just bring it out, and it's like a Sesame Street hand puppet.
Jeffisms. Yeah. No, hey, Abigail, just staying on this path with the zero-click environment that we're in right now, where people can get answers before they even make it to your website. What are you seeing with mental and behavioral health companies that you're working with today?
Okay. I actually saw a really interesting study come out recently, but kind of to back up, I do want to talk about the zero-click search almost problem that we're seeing.
Yeah, if you don't mind, keep in mind our listener out there is not likely as knowledgeable, or at least is as knowledgeable, but want to learn more. I think we should explain some terms here.
So zero-click search is kind of a newer thing in the sense of the last 5 years, where because of the way that Google search is changing, it's adding more features in it. It's not just the 10 blue links of the past. So what's been happening from a consumer behavior standpoint is they're actually getting a lot of the content served to them directly in Google search. And I feel like we've all seen it. Recently, it's been AI overviews. You'll get the quick featured snippet answer at the top. But other types of featured snippets would be a local map result, or people also ask, which is almost an FAQ in Google. And all of that, those types of experiences on search have changed the consumer behavior in the sense of people are just not clicking as much as they are.
So they're not clicking to, in our example, to the behavioral health website.
Exactly.
But the LLMs are providing that answer, and that data came from the website.
Yes.
So if you're a founder or an owner or CEO and you're looking at your website traffic, you might wonder, why is it static or going down? And you might be up in arms, but it may be that the answers are just being delivered in the LLM, and they're still getting the benefit.
Yes. So it's definitely a reframing of metrics right now, because another popular kind of SEO metric we like to report on is impressions, but it's basically the amount of times that people see your website from search, even if they choose not to click on that site. You're actually seeing right now that so many sites, impressions are skyrocketing, clicks are declining. So you're being shown to people more and more than you've ever been before in so many different types of results. And because of that, you're seeing less traffic to your site. So There's a case to be made about, you do lose this kind of conversion aspect with the content that's being served to the site. The sites that are getting most impacted right now are informational based sites. So if you have a site that's super content heavy and all of the traffic that you have right now is coming from a blog or what is alcoholism type of landing page, you're going to be the most affected. What we're seeing as kind of like the combat to zero-click search right now is just reframing the type of content. So instead of investing in content that's not necessarily generic, but kind of answering these more broader informational type of questions that people have, it's going more into these high intent, really conversion focused queries. What that looks like is like, I'm looking for a behavioral health center near me right now. What type of content can we do to target that person versus the sort of more generic terms?
Or not necessarily, or in addition to that is the idea, not just looking for something near me right now, but do you want to put your individual spin on it in terms of like, and here's how we do, to really address the intent of the person and just say, not only do we know what you're looking for, but here's how we do it and here's our angle on it and here's what makes us unique. Is that where you do that?
Exactly.
Okay.
You really have to add your own unique perspective because otherwise, especially with AI, you're just going to have a lot of people out there summarizing content. And that's not going to be beneficial to the person searching or your business.
Well, I mean, this is just a great distinction of it. That was then and this is now.
Yeah.
Right. And then I would love, we want to give actionable content to the people that are listening to this. And one thing that just immediately crossed my mind, if I were listening right now, I would be like, okay, I know that I need to find somebody who's an expert to do this. How do I know? How do I know someone's an expert? I mean, is there a credential? Is there something that people should be looking for? And it's like, how do we know who's a pretender and who's a contender?
That's a great question. Okay. If I had to say,
because we know that you're a contender. Okay, I mean,
I hope so.
It's like we know for a fact that you're a contender.
Yeah.
But it's like, but how do we describe that so that people can make smart decisions?
Yeah, I think if you're looking for a marketing partner, especially when it comes to search, I would really heavily caution against a partner that gives you some sort of scoring system. I've seen that a lot. It's very much like, you have 500 broken links, your Google business profile doesn't have a photo, or you're missing reviews or something like that, and you're 60 out of 100, that I don't think really communicates well, like what the strategy needs to be behind the work that you need to do to get that business growth. But if you have someone that's coming in your door and going, I want to drive admissions, number one. I want to drive the KPIs that matter to your business. And the way that I'm going to do that is by matching the intent or, what people are wanting for the specific audience that you're going after. So while that's kind of more ethereal, I feel like you'll see that in a content strategy, where a content strategy is very geared towards, we have a behavioral health center that is, doesn't take insurance. They're staffed by men only, and they, only take men specifically. Mm-hmm. And all of our content is super geared towards that audience. So, we're really understanding their business, and then how do we, get the admissions based off that?
I think, I've had, people that will call me and be like, hey, my website traffic is down, or they're panicking about this. And I'm trying to explain that you need to start valuing other metrics, yes, higher, like, are your phone calls down? Oh, no, actually, our phone calls are up. Exactly. That's going to be, your email forms, are they down or are they up? Like, that's going to be the impression thing, and the click thing is really kind of new waters for us to understand. I wanted to ask you a question on the impression. So now when, like an example of ChatGPT, when ChatGPT is returning a result, it will generally have it'll have a listing of the places that it went and mm-hmm. referenced. Yep. Does that count as an impression?
It does. So that's a brand mention. It's the same for Google search. It's the same for, when you're in ChatGPT directly. But a brand mention is basically when those platforms are sourcing your website content to give the answer within that sort of segment or like AI overview. You do get counted as an impression for any sort of brand mentions. The ChatGPT AI engine space, I would say reporting's a little bit more difficult for them right now. We're still almost fleshing that out. But within Google, that's a lot cleaner to get that sort of data. So that is being tracked. And I think that's why we're seeing those impressions skyrocket in that way.
I haven't checked this, and I should have done this for asking this question, but within Google Analytics, are they now showing LLMs as sending data?
Yeah, so it's under referral traffic.
Okay.
So what it's the same way that in the past you could track website visits from Yelp or Google Business or Yahoo Answers, even like anything like that. So we just now have a new a line item that is, definitely seeing more and more growth each month for like ChatGPT, Perplexity.
So it lumps them all together, not just breaks it out as chat.
They are
Perplexity.
broken out too.
Oh, they are?
Yeah, it's at a URL level, which I find really interesting.
Which one are we seeing that's driving the most traffic these days?
I think it's no surprise to anyone, but it is ChatGPT or OpenAI. They have really been leading the way in terms of any sort of like innovations within AI. One of the things that is really interesting about ChatGPT too is when we look at all like overall search and like overall market share, like where people are searching when they want to find an answer to something. It's the first time this year that Google's market share has actually dipped below 90%. And that is directly correlated to ChatGPT. So everything that Google has lost, ChatGPT has earned. And so we are seeing this really significant shift. Now, again, I'll caveat, 80 to 90% of people are still searching on Google, but that ChatGPT is really, driving it.
Let's stay in this Clash of the Titans kind of space here for just a second, because I have a theory, and I'm going to put my theory out here, and then this is live, out of net, so I'm just going to put my theory out here. Okay, I saw a study, and this sort of validated my thinking, was that yes, OpenAI is cutting into Google's market share, right? Okay, and that's super impressive and also scary for a lot of people. I think personally, this is my theory, OpenAI is going to be more like Netscape in the early browser wars, and the empire will strike back. I think Google will strike back because in my opinion, it's like, yes, we need to be paying attention to this, but I'm curious about what your thoughts in terms of Alphabet and Google and YouTube, and it's like, how do you see that clash of the titans, and how should people be thinking about that?
Oof, it's such a good conversation right now, especially with. There's a lot of broader like legal battles going on with Alphabet. I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but like
the copyright
one, especially in the EU, they are trying to break up that monopoly like no one's business.
So they're on the bleeding edge, and they're also going to really suffer. Anyway, I don't mean to interrupt you.
No, but I think when we just think about those broader implications, Google is obviously, in the interest of their business, going to fight the hardest to retain that monopoly. So what we've seen is that when ChatGPT came into the space, Google really started pushing everything that it owned. Like Gemini was launched almost as an immediate direct competitor. AI overviews, bringing that into Google search where everyone's already searching. AI mode is also in Google search as well. So like they just started building product after product after product. When I was working at Meta or for Meta, they were also doing their own initiatives like Llama. So like everyone wants an LLM. Everyone wants one of those machine learning models because they think that there's a very competitive edge within that space. At some point, I think to your point, Jeff, like the AI bubble will pop. I don't necessarily know which direction it will go into, but we're seeing that, OpenAI is leading the edge of the AI engine model as of today. So I'm kind of curious to see if they will continue to be innovative in the space, or if they will kind of just like be like, this is the product that we have,
I mean, aside from just an interesting parlor game that we're talking about, which I think I do think it's part of what I believe owners and then strategists are thinking about is how much disruption is going to continue to happen, or is it like if we had a significant amount of disruption and then it's going to stabilize for a little bit, or do you think it's going to continue to be even more and more and more disruption?
I genuinely think that it's not over yet. I do not think we've hit the crest of the hill. Just knowing where even the search experience is going. One of the things that we've actually seen is that, especially for medical queries, that Google is citing AI overviews more than ever. And sometimes, information is inaccurate or, not as correct. It's something that, there's a lot to be said there. They have not really turned off the faucet, even knowing the studies that have come out about inaccuracies with medical information. So I think it's really important that it's, we keep an eye on it, number one, but also just knowing that, there will probably be more disruption sooner, and then we'll get to a point where it levels off. I just don't think we're there yet.
You don't think we're there yet?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's a great conversation, though, and I do think we're going to start to see some consolidation. And when you said who comes out on top, nobody knows, but there's no doubt that Google has more content to pull from than anybody else with all the Google searches, and then you've got G Suite, so it's pulling all the data from anybody that uses G Suite to YouTube. And I've heard a stat the other day that there's 46 days of YouTube content uploaded every day.
Wow.
So 46 years. So if you every day, if you watch the content that's uploaded today, it would take you 46 years to watch all the content uploaded to YouTube. All that's transcribed. All of it's loaded into the LLMs or Gemini. And so, there's something to say that they're probably going to come out and be one of the, ones that come out on top.
Just to add to the YouTube piece, I think Google's competitive edge is not actually AI mode or Gemini or AI overviews. I do think it's YouTube.
I agree with that.
Because
that's the secret weapon.
It is. It's the second largest search engine. That hasn't changed, even with chat. And also we know that YouTube content is being cited so heavily in AI overviews and AI engines today. And also there's just been this broader trend in social spaces where we much prefer a short clip, or a TikTok or a reel over reading a blog of, 5-10 years ago. So I think the way that they're training these models is also based on that behavior. So they might prefer, it's really interesting, even in health spaces, they might prefer someone's, own personal YouTube video essay or story over a Mayo Clinic or a Psychology Today. So it's just something to keep in mind.
I feel like, and I think we mentioned this on a prior episode, but I feel like Google and YouTube in this example, they're telling us what the ingredients should be. And when they announced that now you can do a video reply to a comment, on a YouTube video, they're telling you they want you to upload a short video as a comment versus typing it in. And so it's kind of funny, we like to think of ourselves as being super smart, but they're giving us the playbook. It's just a lot of people, don't have time. They don't follow it as closely maybe as you do. So
the other thing that happened on that too is that last year, we just turned over. So 2024, they started indexing short form videos in Google search too. So now you have this catalog of content that they're pulling in from TikTok and Reels and YouTube Shorts as well. So one of the things that we were even talking about with some clients is who really turn around and produce short videos really quickly. Posting on all of those platforms was actually just a way to own the SERP coverage, because they would index and rank all of those uniquely. So if you had the same video on Shorts, Reels, and TikTok, and someone was searching that content, you could have all three of those populate for that answer.
But it is fascinating, and Lee's right, and Abigail, you're right, in terms of they're showing us the recipe. But here's the thing that a lot of people fall into is that we're also sort of guinea pigs in this experiment, because it's they may be pointing us towards
change.
Right, exactly. And so that's and I think there's a lot of fatigue amongst people that this is Clubhouse is going to be where it is, or and it's
what about the virtual world,
right? Yeah, the metaverse. So, no, exactly. And so, but that makes my point almost precisely, because to go with where Lee was going, and I think Lee's exactly right. we were being pointed in a direction that said, this will give you authority, this will give you eyeballs, this will give you attention, this will give you impressions, until we change our mind.
Yep.
So what advice do you have for people who need to make capital decisions, budget decisions, time decisions, staff decisions? Like, at what point is it experimental and at what point is it real?
Yeah, I mean, one, I think there's a very real, like, almost SEO or even broader, like, search fatigue going on right now. Even with my friends, I mean, we are so fed up with getting fed all of this, like, content over and over again. And you're just like, this is too much. Like, it's too much for even, like, someone to process at this point. What I would say to that fatigue, especially as, like, I think of, you know, a broader search strategy or a business growth strategy even, you win when you think about people first. I say that a lot. It's a term that's coined by Google. People first is an approach that was created, I guess, in 2021. It basically was Google's way of saying, don't do a search strategy for us. Don't do a search strategy for a search engine. Do it for the people who are going to your website. Do it for your audience. And even, I think that's more important now with AI. It's like, you can use AI as an assistant tool, but you can't have that replace, you know, your brand tone, your perspective, your unique certifications and credentials, like your unique POV that you have. And so the more you lean on that and the more you lean on content that you think a real person would actually care about and actually read, I think that's where you win in this space.
You know, Lee knows this as well. Well, Lee and I both know this, but Lee as well as anybody. Remember the early days when it was all about, here's how you trick Google.
Yeah.
Here's how you game Google.
Domain name.
Here's and it's like, I think what Abigail just laid out, I mean, it worked then too.
Yeah.
but we actually thought that, you know, that there was a better mousetrap.
A lot of people, when they call me, they're always like looking for some kind of shortcut. And what I like,
silver bullet, man.
Yeah. And you know what Jeff's referring to that I think, you know, I'm well known for is, you know, at Foundations we had 160 websites. And you would not do that strategy today, but we treated everything as an asset. And I do believe that if companies will look at whether it's a website, whether it's content as an asset, those assets can be massaged, they can be updated. So like in this example, like you wouldn't have 160 websites today, but you might have, you know, pointed that content maybe to one or two websites, and you might now be adding summaries and FAQs to all those blogs and reworking it. Whereas most companies that we work with, Jeff, they just fire and forget. They pay for it, they put it up there, and it's a sunk cost instead of being an asset that keeps paying dividends. And that's like it's a mental shift that the companies that are winning understand that.
Yeah,
you know, someday we should create an orphanage for all those URLs out there, because there's an awful lot of digital products out there.
Imagine the thousands of pages of content that's now just been deleted that could have been.
Those poor digital children.
Lee, you talk about it in your book too, the forced multiplication.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's, but you're right. And I guess, you know, going back to the videos and the YouTube, like, I know you both push, you know, videos as an important component. However, if it's homemade or if they're, you know, highly produced, but Abigail, like in your opinion, I guess everybody should have a YouTube channel with some video content to serve up to the search engines and the LLMs today?
I think 100%. And YouTube should be a social channel. And I think when people think social, they think you know, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. You know, sometimes even TikTok is left on the side because it's a younger audience. But YouTube should be in line with those items. And, you know, if you talk to a social media expert, they'll say, you know, one thing that works on one platform won't work on the other. You have to have unique strategies for all those platforms, which also sounds a little exhausting as well to keep up with that. YouTube is the similar thing. So YouTube relies on its own algorithm. Everything's an algorithm. When you're searching for content, they're deciding on a number of factors from watch time to, you know, people talking about your channel within the platform to number of engagements that you have, comments, things like that, to decide what videos it shows. So there's the benefit, obviously, of ranking in YouTube directly. But I think when we talk about even the broader search picture of like, why a brand mention in AI is important, why having social media presence is important. you're really just getting your name out there in so many different ways online. And I think that's your biggest benefit there.
I wanted to ask the work that is being done like on a website on the architectural side, that should work across all LLMs, right?
Yes.
So there's not like you have to have one set of content that's ChatGPT and then one set that's a Perplexity or Grok or whatever. I mean, you can do it one way as long as you're architecting it that way. It'll be universal.
Yeah, I think it's a similar conversation that people have with Google and Bing. I would say if there was like one thing I wish I would never be asked again, it would be like, does the things that you work for Google also work for Bing? And it's like, yes, it does.
Well, you know what? I'm going to ask you that every day for the next couple of weeks, just to annoy you.
No, because there really isn't like. There's not a Bing versus a Google strategy.
Right.
There's a organic search strategy. It's the same. I think that's going to be the same perspective with AI. There's not a chat versus Grok, but an AI engine strategy.
Well, I mean, that seems like a simplistic thing for us, but it's like for the people that are listening, I think that's spot on. It's like I think they need to understand. The reason the questions keep coming up and up and up and up is because people are confused.
Yeah.
And so I think the more clear we can be, the better.
100%.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about Google Images. So how are the LLMs handling Google Images? Will they? Because I haven't noticed in ChatGPT that they bring in, or even in Gemini, bring in the Google Images. But that's something that I'm always recommending to my clients to make sure that you've got your own. Don't use stock photography. Have your own high quality photo. Make sure that you've got the alt tags. Is that still relevant?
Yes, 100%. I think really taking that from a people first perspective. Alt text or alt tags is something that would 100% be on a checklist SEO task. But I think the reason why people forget that that's important is actually less for search, but more for accessibility. People like who can't necessarily see the photos on a website actually use that from a screen reader to say, what is those pictures? So if you're working with clientele or guests that have any sort of, accessibility needs, I think that's really important that you also make sure that your website is accessible. It also has a search engine benefit. So there's like a nicety with that. The broader images perspective is also people first. If you go to a website and you see a bunch of stock photos and you kind of can get a feel that it's stock, there's not maybe a unified branding or it feels very generic. You couldn't tell the difference between this behavioral health website and this behavioral health website. What you'll see in terms of data is actually a higher bounce rate. So people will leave your site just genuinely because they don't really understand immediately what is your differentiator and who you are. They want to see your location. They want to tour the facility on their phones before they even give a call. They want to see who their clinical director would be. All of those are really valuable content and images that you can create to have on your site. And I think there is obviously always going to be an SEO or search engine benefit to that. But if I were really in like a behavioral health leader's shoes, I would say focus less on what you think would be good for organic search, but focus more on what you think people would actually want from your website experience. And I think that's that genuine, images.
Such a great point, because I know you both preach to the clients about having, custom photography put on their site.
It's got to feel like you. That's. I know that seems maybe overly simplistic, but again, if you approach this people first strategy, again, regardless of the layers of technology that you use, it's like you want something to be responsive and it needs to feel unique. It needs to feel like a connection for what you're seeking and then also what I'm providing.
100%.
That's one of my favorite little tricks that I do when somebody brings me in to do a consultation. If I notice that they've got stock photography, I can quickly go find that same image on half a dozen other websites, and they just didn't know. And usually it's other websites that they would be appalled, other competitors, they'd be appalled. And it's like, it usually is eye-opening. They think that we're unique and we're special. Really?
Yeah.
Doesn't appear to be.
Well, I like to assume positive intent to begin with. So it's like, I would like to assume that people are not trying to pull the wool over people's eyes. We know that they do out there. But what's interesting, some people think that, this AI wave that we're in, this GEO wave that we're in, is making business more difficult. I like to think about it from the standpoint of it's really smoking out the pretenders.
Yes.
This is really making it tougher and tougher to not be legitimate.
Yeah.
How do you respond to that?
Well, number one, I agree. I mean, the generative AI is such a big player here. I mean, even from an images perspective, now you have chat that can create an image for you. And one of the things that I've found really interesting in just doing some sort of like execution style work is that when you're using a stock photography site like Adobe or Creative Express, they're pulling in generative AI images now too. Wow. So someone who is, can't necessarily point that out immediately, which I can't even sometimes, you might be uploading a stock photography that you think are real people and it's generative. So that even comes into play as well. So I think that it just comes back to the point of, fatigue a little bit and like wanting to make sure that, you are doing everything you can to be a unique kind of player in the online space.
Well, I just want to make sure that the people who are running great programs and people who are great clinicians and people that are doing the right things don't fall into the trap of making mistakes. Yeah. Because, again, I want to go into this in assuming positive intent. They work with an agency or they work with somebody who really, doesn't know the right moves or whatever, and they unknowingly kind of make some mistakes. Lee sees that. I see that. I mean, this is something that's very common. And so I would love if we could give them some actionable things that said, here's what like a little checklist, like here's what I know I'm doing right. Here's where I think I need some help. I mean, how would you guide somebody in that scenario?
The first thing that I would probably guide is I think local SEO is something that we didn't really get to talk about today, and I think that's very important to focus on, especially a behavioral health center, even with multi-locations, you still want to be the best one in your city. You still want to be the best one in your state, and there's a way to effectively go after that in online spaces. And it takes a lot of credibility and authority building to do that. From a tactical perspective, the first thing that I would be asking a behavioral health center is that, do you have a dedicated location page? Do you have a dedicated location page for each location that you have? Or I've seen frequently that sites have, or behavioral health sites have just tour our campus or contact us. They don't actually have a dedicated, we're in Nashville, we're in North Carolina page, which is really beneficial for search. There's a lot of strategies behind what makes a successful location page, which, could be a whole other discussion, to be honest. But that's a really big one. And then the second sort of thing that I actually think a lot of behavioral health centers could start doing today is actually Google business optimizations, which fall under that local SEO bucket.
100%.
Most will probably have a Google business profile, but at the same time, most would probably not be optimized for search. And that looks like having unique location-specific descriptions for each of your location. It could mention the highway that you're near, the local mall that your location is near, the city that you're in, as well as like any sort of credibility signals like founded in 1942. Those are the things that are going to be the factors or the best factors that help you rank in Google Maps. And really the last one within that Google business optimization realm is actually posting. We've talked about social a lot today. I think a more even underutilized than a YouTube is actually Google Business. Google Business has its own built-in social platform. You can post events and news and updates. So if you hire a new clinical director, have their photo be on the Google Business post and write a brief description for them, link to your website. Or if you have an event or a workshop coming up, you can actually list events coming up near on the Google Business location itself. So it's just another way to market yourself as a leader in the space. Local is really important.
Jeff, I noticed on your Google Business profile for your consulting business that you don't have founded 1960 1969. So you probably need to make that update.
Come on, Lee.
Or 1970. I forget. Are you 69, 70?
Things have came a long way from the yellow book,
So, Lee,
yellow
I'm-
pages, right?
So Lee, I'm going to get on my cell phone and make that edit.
You're right.
The banana phone. Well, Abigail, this has been amazing. I mean, I feel like I get a master class every time I talk to you. So thank you for coming on.
We've got to do a second episode and maybe a third.
We
now.
definitely, yeah.
This is just kind of
It's
a
such
full,
a
right?
nice
Hold on a second. I want to make the official invitation. Would you come back
Yes.
for a second or even a third visit? Because I do think not only is this topic buzzy, but I think you present it in a way that's accessible, and people really appreciate that. So I want to formally invite you. Would you come back?
I'll think about it. Okay. We'll see.
It'll cost you, Jeff, a little bit of money. So
Okay, that's all right.
anyway, well, Abigail, before we wrap up, though, is there anything maybe we didn't ask you or something you think could be valuable to the audience?
Honestly, I think if I said take away one thing today, we live in a world of AI. We live in this world that's always innovating. So the best way to stay on top of it is just be unique and showcase your differentiators. And I think that's the number one thing that you should think about when it comes to a digital strategy.
Well, that's awesome. Well, thanks for all you do, and thanks for the education today.
Yeah.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of Mastermind. On behalf of Lee, Jeff, and the entire Mastermind crew, I wanted to thank you for joining us today. If today's conversation with Abigail sparked any curiosity around search or AI or anything related to that, please drop some comments into our comments section, and we'll get them over to Abigail and get them answered for you. But thanks again, and we'll see you next time on Mastermind.
That wraps up this episode of Mastermind. Thank you so much for joining us. And remember, Mastermind is not just a podcast, it's a community. So don't forget to comment, subscribe, and review us. Your feedback helps us continue to bring you content that's relevant and relatable. Thanks again to our sponsor, Snapshot, a digital media marketing agency. And thank you for joining us on Mastermind, your behavioral health playbook.